Welcome to Quiet Valley Living Historical Farm. Quiet Valley is one of the last examples of a pre-Revolutionary War family farm in the northeast part of Pennsylvania. By the 1760s, this area had survived the French and Indian War, and more settlers began to arrive to homestead. The best farmlands in southeastern Pennsylvania had already been taken by earlier immigrants, particularly those from Germanic states as early as the 1680s. By the time the Depper family came to the port of Philadelphia in 1765, several German-speaking farmers and craftsmen had already established homes and a church in this section of present-day Monroe County. For the Depper family, this community at Hamilton Square would provide them with the foundation for a new life in the British American colony. As we walk through the farm, we will see evidence of the attractions and difficulties that faced the Deppers as they established a family farm that served as their home for the next 5 generations. One of the most important structures on any Pennsylvania German farm is the barn. Our barn is a typical Pennsylvania bank barn that provides the farmer with an easy access ramp to 3 bays, 2 storage bays for grains, and the center bay to serve as the threshing floor on the main level. Wagon loads of grain would be pulled right into the opening of the threshing floor and unloaded. This barn, constructed around 1850, is a later expansion of the original structure, built by Hannah, great-granddaughter of the Deppers, and Peter Marsh, the 4th generation of the family. The interior of the barn reused the original hand-hewn beams, while completing the expansion with sawn timber. The size of the barn indicates the need for greater storage capacity as the farm prospered under the Marsh family. Another advantage of a bank barn is the lower level created under the main floor. Because the barn is constructed on the side of a hill, the lower level provides protection for the farm animals. While English farmers frequently allowed their livestock to roam free, the German farmers were more careful to provide essential shelter for their domestic herds. Throughout the 19th century, the Quiet Valley farm generally had 2 cows, at least 1 horse, a large number of sheep, and a variety of fowl. These animals provided milk, butter, eggs, and cheese, as well as meat for the family. Eggs and butter could be traded at the local general store for other goods needed. Let me introduce you to some of the current animals on the farm. Below the barn in the pasture, we keep our 4 to 6 adult sheep. We keep sheep for their fleece because we can spin the sheep's wool and weave it into fabric to make clothing. All farms have several significant outbuildings. For the Depper family, the smokehouse and dry house were essential for food preservation to feed the family throughout the winter. Butchering of pigs and cattle would take place in the fall. While some of the meat would be consumed fresh, most of it would be placed in the smokehouse, where a low, continuous fire would slowly preserve the meat. The dry house, containing a small wood stove, would dry fresh produce and herbs throughout the spring, summer, and fall for food to be used throughout the off-growing season. The dry house has sliding drawers with open bottom slats on the side, where the produce was placed on muslin as it's dried. Drying time depended on the item and the weather. In Germany, villages usually had a community bake oven for baking bread and other foods. Since farms were further apart in the colonies, individual farms constructed their own bake ovens. The oven is built of stone and lined with fire brick. A wood fire is started early in the morning, and more wood would be added to heat the bricks to baking temperature. When the bricks were hot enough, hot coals were raked out before the bread was put in. Foods that needed higher heat were baked first, and other items such as cookies could be done later. A casserole would be put in at the end of the day to slow cook overnight. Most important for the Depper family would have been a source of fresh water. The well allowed for fresh water to be drawn up in special buckets designed with a hole in the bottom that allowed the water to flow in as the bucket was lowered. A flap over the hole would then close as the bucket was raised, keeping in the water. The spring house has a trench to flow groundwater through it, thus keeping products cool in the hot weather. Our Granddaddy Cabin is a typical log structure designed for quick construction to provide basic shelter. The logs would be cut away from nearby farm trees, hand-hewn to square off and notched to fit together. The V-notch on this building is typically German. Chinking, a mix of clay, lime, horsehair, or other binder, filled in the open spaces between the logs. A fireplace would be put at one end. Windows and a door completed the structure, although windows were covered with oiled paper before glass was readily available. Today, we house our spinning and weaving demonstrations in this building. The original farmhouse from about 1770 clearly demonstrates the development of the family. The cellar kitchen, again a bank construction like the barn, would be built of stone and hand-hewn beams. This one room with an end fireplace served all the needs of the family. Before a barn was constructed, it was not unusual for the animals to be housed in the cellar kitchen as well. Everyone in the family ate and slept in this one area. As the family grew, it is not surprising that additional space was needed. A log structure was placed on top of the cellar kitchen, probably around 1800. This gave separate sleeping areas for the family. The last section of the farmhouse was built in 1893 with frame construction. The new kitchen and upstairs bedroom were added, along with a small parlor and porch on the other end of the building over the cellar kitchen pantry. Wooden clapboard siding covered the logs to give the house a uniform look. At the back of the house, however, we have removed the siding from the log structure to show how each section of the house was added. Although the house looks pleasant and comfortable from the exterior, there was no running water or indoor plumbing. The outhouse continued to be used throughout the private occupancy of the farm. Another part of any family farm is the vegetable and herb garden. Most of the produce fed the family, although any surplus would be bartered with neighbors or at the general store. Although cotton fabric became readily available after 1820, many Pennsylvania German families continued to grow flax for the family clothing. Flax is made into linen fiber for clothing, and the coarser fibers are used to make rope. Our garden is a 4-square design, also typical of Pennsylvania German gardens. The beds are raised to help with better drainage. Thank you for joining us on our journey around the farm, and we hope to see you at Quiet Valley soon.